Hey everyone, how's it going? I hope everyone's doing well. Welcome back to the channel. So in today's episode, I'm doing something a little bit different. You'll recall that the last few episodes have involved extreme metal and also collection updates. So I thought I'd change it up a bit today and go back to another episode of hard rock heavy metal vinyl. So you will recall in the last chapter or edition, I covered up to D. I was in the letter D, including Dio, so that was the last artist I was covering, and what I'm going to do today is cover continuing on with D, and it's just one particular band, which is of course DOKKEN. Now what I'm going to do today, you will recall in my CD collection, one of my episodes, I talked about my DOKKEN CD collection, so I don't want to repeat myself today, but there was one album I didn't talk about because I don't have on CD, and there's also a live album that I have on vinyl. So in addition to that, to make it a bit more different, or change it up a bit, I'm also going to do a ranking of 80s DOKKEN albums. Like, in my opinion, the 80s ones are the completely essential ones. Of course, they've released some good albums after that, but in any event, I only own the 80s albums on vinyl, so I'm going to rank them today. I'm not going to talk about the albums in too much detail, apart from the ones I've never spoken about. So that's one studio album, and also the live album. So, yeah. Now, DOKKEN, obviously a band which needs no introduction to most people, but if you're not familiar, they are a heavy metal band from LA, sort of around since the early 80s, and I suppose their style was characterized as hair metal or glam metal, but I think, you know, in a lot of cases that label wasn't quite fitting for a lot of bands. I think they were just lumped in with that, depending on their look, you know, in terms of the hair or the makeup they wore. I felt that like DOKKEN was a bit different to hair metal bands because the topics they covered in their songs were a bit more serious, and also with DOKKEN there's a lot of emphasis more on atmosphere and emotion rather than, you know, just like hard rock cheeseball anthems, which a lot of hair metal bands did. But, you know, in any event, then maybe there's some overlap, but I think DOKKEN has a really unique sound, especially because of the atmosphere. So if you're not familiar at all with DOKKEN, really their secret weapon was and is George Lynch, the guitarist, because he's just a brilliant guitarist. He's just a virtuoso, like an amazing capacity to shred incredibly, play these blistering, fast, intense solos, which are really raunchy and aggressive, but at the same time so melodic and atmospheric. So it's a really unique style. In addition to that, vocalist Don Dokken has a really amazing voice, in my opinion, like just these clean melodic vocals which add so much atmosphere. And I think the dynamics of DOKKEN's music, they knew how to do a balance. Like, it wasn't all just like crunching the whole time, like pound your fist or whatever. Like, there were some slow, somber moments and some melodic, atmospheric moments. That's what I like about this band. So even though they're, in my opinion, they're not hair metal, but they get characterized that way. I know you didn't ask me, but what are my top three sort of bands in this genre? I would say DOKKEN, Rat, and Black and Blue. I'm not sure in what order, but yeah, DOKKEN are among my favorites. So yeah. So anyway, I'm going to rank the 80s albums today, and remember, if you disagree, that's fine. You tell me your ranking, your list, and why, and I'll be glad to hear it. Okay, so looking at the 80s albums, coming in at number 4, which is my least favorite, and I will say this, that I like all of the 80s DOKKEN albums, but obviously with a ranking, one has to come last by default. Yeah, so that's the one I'm going to start with today. So coming in at number 4 for me, for 80s DOKKEN albums, is Breaking the Chains. Now, I know some people will go, oh, what, this album's brilliant. Yes, I agree, it's a very good album, but I just like the other albums more. So this is an album which I've never talked about. I didn't show it in my CD collection update because I don't have it on CD. This is the band's debut album, if you discount Don Dokken, which was very similar to this one. This one was a re-recording, and you see on the back here it's got Don Dokken on vocals, George Lynch on guitar, Mick Brown on drums, which formed the DOKKEN lineup throughout the 80s. Here, the bass is credited to Juan Crucier, who's famous for playing in Rat, of course, but I actually found out that although he was credited, he did not play on this album. The bass player was actually Peter Boltes from Accept, the German speed metal band, which is interesting, definitely one of my favorite bands as well. Yeah, so this, as I said, I've never spoken about this album. I really like this album. It's got some iconic songs. The reason why it comes last for me is just because, for me, there are just a few too many sort of generic run-of-the-mill rock songs, and I know some people might say, oh, you arrogant armchair critic, but, you know, I'm a fan, so I'm allowed to rank the albums as I choose. So, yeah, what I like about this album is it's got a bit of a raw production, so you can tell the band was in their early stages, maybe still finding their sound. I don't think this was representative of the, established typical Dokken sound later in the 80s, but they were certainly getting there with this album. And in addition to the rawness, you can hear the bass and the drums really well. The rhythm section has always been a big part of Dokken and a highlight, definitely. And yeah, so the drum and the bass sound is great on this. And of course, like, a lot of people have criticized Don's vocals as being too clean on this album, but that's what I like about it. It makes it distinct. It's not, like with a lot of hard rock or heavy metal or hair metal bands, it was all these like raunchy, screechy vocals, but Don has a very clean voice, and I really like that on this album. Of course, the guitar playing by George, riff-wise and in terms of solos, is just brilliant. But yeah, the reason why this one comes last to me is just, as I said, there are a few sort of run-of-the-mill generic hard rock songs on here, which are not bad, but they're just not brilliant to me. So examples of those are like I Can't See You, Live to Rock, Rock to Live, and what was the other? Yeah, like Knight Rider and Seven Thunders to a degree. So like, again, they're not bad songs, but they're just not musically brilliant. But as I've mentioned before in my CD collection, the good thing about Dokken is even when it's just okay, it's still very catchy. So yeah, great album. But let's talk about my favorite songs, which make this album brilliant. First of all, the title track, Breaking the Chains. Everyone knows that, like it's got that iconic video clip, which is maybe a bit ridiculous and over the top, but I still love it. Just amazing chugging, catchy riff in that song, melodic vocals, excellent chorus. I love the bridge, where it's just the vocal harmonies in that song. Brilliant shredding yet melodic guitar solo from George. So yeah, Breaking the Chains, it's an iconic sort of, I suppose, hair metal song, but fantastic. I love that song. Also, the next track, In the Middle, is great. That showcases Dokken's ability to create somber atmospheres with melody, and excellent vocal melodies on that. The chorus is so catchy. In the Middle, it's fantastic. Yeah, just genius. And then we go on to the next track, Felony. Lyrically, that song is messed up, as is another song on this album, but annoyingly, the music is brilliant. It's sort of like a funk metal song almost, like the bass line, dun, 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 like this kind of stop-start, and the vocal melodies are very catchy. So yeah, as I said, the lyrics are messed up for the song Felony, but actually it's a great song musically, so that's another highlight for me. So first three tracks are great. Yeah, as I said, I Can't See You and Live to Rock, Rock to Live, just a bit boring and generic for me. Over to side two, Knight Rider is a great song. That's got a kind of Danger Zone, Kenny Loggins vibe, especially, with that like galloping bass line in the verse leading up to it. So I do like that song. And yes, Seven Thunders is good as well, like good pre-chorus and chorus in that, but again, just not a standout track. Same with Stick to Your Guns, that's kind of generic as well, but having said that, like the pre-chorus and the chorus are very catchy, and the vocals are melodic, so that's good. And the album concludes with a live recording called Paris is Burning, played in Germany. That is a very aggressive yet atmospheric song. So yeah, you can see that I obviously like this song, but there's just about 4 or 5 songs which I feel are a bit generic and don't stand out that much. But for the main tracks, which are my favorites, it's definitely worth checking out. So they are Breaking the Chains, In the Middle, Felony, Paris is Burning. Yeah, probably so like 4. So you see why this comes in last for me, just because there's not too many highlight tracks. But obviously the highlight tracks are brilliant. So yeah, there's the cover, picture of the band on the back. This one just comes with the jacket, Elektra Records, plain black vinyl. I didn't even get a sleeve. I got this second hand at a shop in Bangkok. So yep, it just came like this. Cheap price too. Yeah, so coming in at 4th, great impressive debut. That is Dokken with Breaking the Chains. Okay, coming in at number 3 for me, this is Dokken with Back for the Attack, which came out in 87, was it? I think so, yeah. Now, you'll remember I talked about this on my CD version when I was talking about this band, so I don't need to say much. I think in that video I may have said this is my least favorite, but now actually I think this is because there's too many sort of run-of-the-mill generic hard rock songs. Fuck this fan. Hold on. Yeah, but I've come to appreciate this one a lot more actually. Like, first of all, the production is excellent. This is the last album of the 80s, so of the four, this one came out the latest, like 87, 88, I think. And where it really excels is the production. Like, it's very glossy and clear, but not overly polished, but it just brings out the sound so well. And yeah, the mix is absolutely perfect. That's great. The reason it comes in at number 3 for me is, again, I think I mentioned this in the CD one, there's just a lot of kind of filler tracks for me. And I know a lot of people might say, how dare you say that? But, you know, some songs just, yeah, they're okay, but they're not outstanding. As I've said, you know, all Dokken songs, even when they're just okay, they're catchy. But some of the sort of, you know, generic, run-of-the-mill kind of boring songs for me on this are Standing in the Shadows, So Many Tears, Burning Like a Flame. I can't stand that song because that's very sort of happy and lovey-dovey. That's not me at all. Yes, Stop Fighting Love is okay. Cry of the Gypsy is okay. So you see what I mean? Like, there aren't so many bad songs and such, but there's just a lot where I say, oh, they're kind of okay. But then again, the highlight tracks are absolutely brilliant on this. So yeah, like Kiss of Death, what a great opener. Dealing with some very sort of topical lyrics at that time, you know, but like a great sort of thrashy melodic riff in that. Don's vocals are very atmospheric. Track 2, Prisoner, is one of my favorites on the album. I think I mentioned just such a hooky, catchy chorus, especially with the backing vocals. And I think I've mentioned this, that the good thing about Dokken is all elements of the band are a highlight, you know, like guitars, vocals, bass, drums. So it's not a band where it's all about the singer or the guitarist, even though those respective people in the band probably think that. But Mick Brown and Jeff Pilson on bass by this time, like, their playing is just awesome and it really stands out. Just a tightly knit unit on this album. So yeah, Prisoner, fantastic song, great backing vocals. Night by Night, that's delving deeply into the aforementioned strong atmosphere which Dokken can convey sometimes. Like, brilliant. I especially love the chorus. Sorry, not the chorus. Oh, the chorus is good, but I especially love the bridge, which is, you know, when the shadows fall, blah 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 at all. You know. Anyway, that's just, I love the melody in that. So that's brilliant as well. Heaven Sent is very atmospheric as well, especially with the vocal melodies and just the bass line and the riff. The mix is so good on that song. And again, just the dynamics, there's so much variation. Like, there's slow, soft, somber parts, and then there's like heavy parts and great, powerful chorus. It's sort of like, Heaven Sent is kind of like a power ballad, I guess, but not a cheesy one in any way. Then you've got the instrumental track, Mr. Scary, which is good. Like, again, good, but not a standout track for me. It's okay, but it's just showcasing the band's musical abilities, I suppose. And other favorite tracks for me, yeah, Lost Behind a Wall. That is just really catchy. Again, this band, by this album, they showed how they can really create hooky verses and choruses, just things which reel you in and they're so catchy. Yeah, so Lost Behind a Wall is great. So is Cry of the Gypsy. That's one of my more recent favorites. And Sleepless Nights, like, initially I didn't like that song very much, but it's got a very catchy chorus and raunchy guitar riff, which is great. And then, of course, the album concludes with Dream Warriors, which was featured on the soundtrack to Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And I love that movie, by the way, like the Nightmare on Elm Street series, but also that song is fantastic as well. And yeah, just so atmospheric. And yeah, Dokken really sort of pushed the atmosphere on this album. So I really do like it. The only thing is about it, there's just too many filler songs for me. But anyway, like, by my standards, that is, like, according to me, but I'm sure a lot of people say this is the best album. But anyway, so just to recap my favorite tracks: Kiss of Death, Prisoner, Night by Night, Heaven Sent, Lost Behind a Wall, Cry of the Gypsy, and Dream Warriors. Yeah, so about half of the songs. And as I said, the other half, they're not terrible. They're just sort of like catchy enough and okay for me. But yes, anyway, so here's the cover. Pretty cool cover art with this one, more colorful for Dokken. There's the back. And did this come with anything? Oh, it did. Okay. Yep, so just plain black vinyl, Elektra Records. And, oh, no, not an insert. This is just the jacket. Pretty cool artwork there. And portraits of members of the band and all the credits and everything. Yeah, so like I said, this one used to be my least favorite of the four, but then I realized it actually it is a good album, definitely. It's just it's got too many filler tracks for me, but I do think it's better than Breaking the Chains overall. So yeah, so that's why it comes in at number 3. So Dokken with Back for the Attack. All right, coming in at number 2 then, this is Dokken with Tooth and Nail. Legendary album. Like, a lot of people love this album. This is an iconic Dokken album. Just so many good songs. This was when the band was still, this was the second album after Breaking the Chains. This is when the band, they still had a kind of raw and raunchy production, but it wasn't too dirty, it wasn't too clean. It was just that perfect heavy metal sound, in my opinion. And yeah, this brings back great memories. Like, I'm a relatively recent Dokken fan. I only discovered them about 14 years ago, but I caught on very quickly and now I love them. But this just brings back so many memories. It was the second album I bought by them, and it reminds me of, you know, where I was living, where I was working, and just listening to this album all the time. But yeah, it starts off with a great intro, Without Warning, which is kind of like a foreboding acoustic intro. And just to say, again, with this one, there are a few kind of like okay tracks where they're catchy enough but just not brilliant, in my opinion. And those ones are, like Tooth and Nail is a great song, like great aggressive opener. And yeah, Just Got Lucky and Heartless Heart, they're not highlight songs for me, but they are very catchy. Like, you can't help but sing along to those songs, so they're very good. Don't Close Your Eyes, yeah, great atmosphere on that, especially with the galloping bass and sort of like fast aggressive nature of the music. Great chorus in that as well. When Heaven Comes Down is sort of a slow chugging heavy track, but very catchy chorus again. Now, you may be familiar with this when I talked about it in the CD edition. My absolute favorite song on the album is Into the Fire, because it has incredible atmosphere, you know, with the clean acoustic guitars and Don's polished, clean vocals in that song. They're fantastic. And I remember distinctly when I first heard this album, when I bought it back in the day, I remember this track stood out to me. You know, the part where he says, "Into the fire, I'm falling," at the beginning. I was going, those vocals are amazing, just so clean and atmospheric. So that's what really grabbed me for this song. But yeah, like I said, the clean guitars are fantastic, and I really like the bridge in this song because, again, it's so atmospheric and melodic. You know, like, take me back where I came from, don't want to see your face no more. Brilliant stuff. Yep, so Into the Fire, undoubtedly my favorite track. Then probably my second favorite track is the next song, which is Bullets to Spare. Like, that's sort of like a slow chugging rocker, but like got a really foreboding atmosphere and lyrics in that song. So like yeah, it's just got a very 80s vibe, 80s atmosphere. You know, like where he says like another night on the run. It reminds me of someone, you know, on the run in LA at nighttime. Like, it's just cool atmosphere in that, so I really like it. Now, the big ballad on this song was Alone Again. A lot of people love that song. You know, I'm not really a love song or ballad person, so it doesn't grab me that much, but the annoying thing about Dokken is even when you don't particularly like the song, it's catchy enough. So it's a song that's very easy to sing along to, Alone Again, but it's not one of my favorites. And then the album concludes with Turn on the Action, which is just like a fast, aggressive closer, galloping, a lot of double bass drumming in that from Mick Brown. The chorus is fantastic. The lyrics are fantastic. You know, like, I'm like a stick of dynamite. It's and the backing vocals in the chorus are brilliant. And then the album concludes with a blistering guitar solo from George Lynch, sort of in the vein of Eruption by Van Halen, where it's just like this brief instrumental, blistering guitar solo, shredding just to finish the album. So yeah, fantastic stuff. This has got a very, compared to this one, Back for the Attack, this one's got much more of a raw heavy metal sound. So I really like it. It's definitely, it's got that rawness, but it's still better than Breaking the Chains in my opinion. But yeah, here's a picture of the guys on the back. Don's hair hadn't fully developed yet. It was still curly before he got the big puffed up spray. You'll see that later. Interesting cover art. And I heard the album name came from the fact that this band was almost going to get dropped by their label, and Don said, "Give us one more chance, please." And the record company said, okay. So it really was tooth and nail, make or break. And as it happens, this album turned out to be brilliant. So it saved their career. Now, having a look here. Oh yes, this is the Japanese pressing because I bought it in Thailand. So again, linear notes or liner notes, and yep, everything in Japanese here, so that's cool. And I got this one, this was mint condition actually at a pretty cheap price as well, but I'm one of those people, I don't get too precious with mint items. I still want to play them because I want to hear the music. Just plain black vinyl on, oh yeah, it's still electro, but it's got Japanese characters on it as well. So yeah, I think if you've never heard Dokken and you're looking for an album to start with, this would be a good one, tooth and nail, because it's still got that raw heavy metal atmosphere and it's still melodic. So Dokken has that unique balance, definitely. Yep, so great heavy metal album from Dokken. In my rankings, this comes in at number 2. This is Dokken with Tooth and Nail. All right, so that leaves us with just one more studio album from the 80s. You probably know what it is, and if you've seen my CD edition of Dokken, you'll know this already. Coming in at number 1, by far for me, is Under Lock and Key, which came out in 1985. So this was the 3rd album after Tooth and Nail. Yeah, so you may have heard this story, so sorry to repeat myself, but as I said, I only discovered Dokken 14 years ago, and I'd just read about them and I'd seen the name. So in Utopia Records in Sydney, I saw this on CD in the bargain bin at a cheap price, obviously. So I decided to grab it, and then as soon as I put it on, I just loved this. I thought, wow, this is so fresh. It's so 80s, yet so melodic and atmospheric. I'd never heard any heavy metal like it. So it's not just the fact that this was the first Dokken album I heard. I think musically it is the best. You know, I was talking about on the other albums, there are some filler songs, but on this one, I think it's all killer, no filler. Seriously, absolutely fantastic. Yeah, so yeah, I could just rattle off all the names, but I'll just go through it quickly. Yeah, Unchain the Night, great atmospheric, chugging, melodic opening track, which is brilliant. The vocals in the chorus really struck me. Like, Don's voice is amazing, as on all albums. Yep, The Hunter is a very catchy hard rock song as well. In My Dreams, yeah, again, balancing that kind of like melody and atmosphere with the hard rock stuff. Blistering guitar solos in that are fantastic. And also like, you know, the main chorus, like, in my dreams, it's still the same, your love is strong. I can't remember the lyrics, but I've heard it so many times, but yeah, the vocal melodies are great. Now, the track Slippin' Away, that's sort of a slow, somber track. I would say that's not one of my favorites, but again, it's still very catchy and easy to sing along to. Yeah, so I really do like that. Lightning Strikes again showcases the band's fast playing abilities. Like, it's so fast and aggressive. The guitar solos on it are absolutely nuts, like blistering at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and Don really shines as the vocal hero when he sings, you know, when he's screaming at the end, Lightning Strikes again in that raspy voice. It's just so piercing and falsetto, it sounds fantastic. Now going over to side 2, the track It's Not Love, very, very catchy. It's got that sort of mid-paced chug and groove, which is fantastic. Very memorable chorus, like that's the good thing. It's not just the guitars and the melodies, it's also the vocals and the lyrics, like everything. It's the full package which makes the songs memorable. Jaded Heart, wow, what a power ballad. It's just so somber and melodic and atmospheric, and then it builds up to this heavy chorus, and shame on me, I'll admit it, but I sing my heart out to that song, Jaded Heart. You know, the chorus, it's just so easy. These songs are so catchy to do that, so yeah. Then we've got Don't Lie to Me, which when I first heard this album, this was my favorite. Like, as I said before, that sounds like it could be out of a soundtrack to an 80s movie, like hard rock, you know, like Rocky IV or something. But yeah, I really love the chorus in that, especially Don's vocals, where he says, don't treat me like a fool. It's just piercing and melodic and atmospheric, so absolutely fantastic. Will the Sunrise is also not one of my favorite songs, but it's still catchy enough. Again, you're singing along to every track. And then Till the Living End is a very fast, aggressive closer, shredding out of control guitar solos on that, which are just absolutely fantastic. So yeah, with this one, I shouldn't say what are my favorite songs, which ones are not, but like I would say out of the 10 songs, 8 I think are absolutely brilliant, with the only 2 I don't like as much being Slippin' Away and Will the Sunrise, but I still really like them. So here's the cover, very 80s. I think that's an iconic cover, and I like the yellow color in it. Picture on the back. What have we got here? So yeah, again, just plain black vinyl from Elektra Records, and comes with this jacket. So picture of the band looking very 80s and glammy there, and all of the lyrics in English this time. I got this one at a flea market as well, second hand. Yeah, but if you've never heard Dokken, like if you were to say, oh, tell me what do you think is the best Dokken album? Obviously you can tell by this ranking that I think this one is, but I honestly think if you I honestly think that if you start with this album, Dokken, you'll be sold on them. So absolutely brilliant. It was the first one I heard, but it's my favorite, coming in at number 1, the best of their 80s classic era, Dokken with Under Lock and Key. All right. Okay, so that's it, guys. That concludes the studio albums ranking for 80s Dokken. Tell me, what's your opinion on Dokken and what do you think about those albums? Tell me your ranking if you disagree. But I do have one album to talk about. This is not included in the ranking, obviously, because it's a live album. But rounding off my 80s Dokken vinyl collection is Dokken with Beast from the East. Is this what it's called? Yeah. I always mix it up with the Judas Priest title, which they probably stole it from anyway. But yeah, so this is a double live album recorded in Japan in the late 80s, just after the release of Back for the Attack, I think. So you see you've got pictures of them there, and by this time, Don's wearing that trademark full-brimmed cowboy hat, so very fitting for the late 80s. But yeah, as far as live albums go, like in general, I'm not a big fan of live albums because I think they're kind of pointless, but sometimes it's good because with the live sound, you really hear the energy and the adrenaline from the band, and more to the point, you can hear all the instruments more clearly. Like often, you know, with album production, the bass and the drums get toned down a bit, but on this, you can really hear, you know, the nocturnal pulse of the bass, the heavy drums and everything. And of course, they have, you know, intermissions like George Lynch doing like prolonged guitar solos. That's what sets a live performance apart from, you know, a studio recording, really. But what a star-studded song selection. Like every song on this is brilliant. So it's 2 vinyl, 4 sides, but I like every song. I'll just read them out. You know, and coming from the 4 albums I just talked about. So side 1, you've got Unchain the Night, Tooth and Nail, Standing in the Shadows, Sleepless Night, and Dream Warriors. Side 2, Kiss of Death, When Heaven Comes Down, Into the Fire, and Mr. Scary. Side 3, Heaven Sent, It's Not Love, Alone Again, and Just Got Lucky. And side 4, Breaking the Chains, In My Dreams, Turn on the Action, and Walk Away. So actually, that last song, Walk Away, is a studio recording. So all of the other songs I mentioned, they're all from those studio albums. And have you noticed that of those song titles I mentioned, they didn't really include many fillery type songs. Like these are all kick-ass songs. But the last track, Walk Away, it's kind of a somber, melancholic track, but a really good sort of power ballad, I suppose, still showcasing melody and atmosphere. But I heard that when they were recording that song, because this band has been infamous for all the internal disputes and, you know, fights over money and, you know, credits and control, creative control and all that thing. But by this stage, apparently the band were, you know, heavily abusing drugs and alcohol and everything, and they all hated each other. So with Walk Away, I heard on this documentary, they actually recorded their own parts in separate rooms, and then they just had a brief part when they're in the house playing together, because by that stage they really couldn't stand each other so much. But of course later on they reformed. But yeah, if you happen to see this and you don't own any Dokken, I would pick it up because it's a good snapshot of the band's 80s material, and the sound quality is excellent. It's raunchy, hard and heavy. The crowd, Japanese crowd, does a great job, like cheering and screaming and singing along. Yeah, and Don does those chants, you know, like gets the crowd to participate and everything. So yeah, fun live album with great sound quality. And we'll just show you the inside of this one because it's pretty cool. So yeah, gatefold here with the Japanese flag. And yeah, it's double vinyl, so I won't pull both of them out, but again, just these plain Elektra Records jackets and plain black vinyl. Yeah, so this is sort of like a good live greatest hits album for 80s Dokken. So it's definitely related to the albums I just mentioned, but just not included in the ranking. All right, and then of course, yep, so that's Dokken with Beast from the East. I always mix it up with Unleashed in the East. Anyway, yeah, cool cover art as well. And yeah, that's it. So that concludes my 80s vinyl Dokken collection. Hope I didn't go into too much detail, but that's my ranking. And of course, the live album was excluded from that. But it is a good snapshot of the band's 80s material. All right, so tell me guys, what do you think of Dokken? Do you like them? What are your favorite albums? What's your ranking? Let me know. Hope I didn't repeat myself too much from the CD version, but I'm not one person to just say, hey, here's an album and it's great, next. What's the point of that? Okay, so hope you enjoyed the video, guys. Thank you very much, everyone, for your continued support of the channel, and thanks a lot to the new subscribers. I've seen a few people subscribe recently, so I really appreciate it, and thanks everyone else for your continued interest. I'll be back again soon. I'm not sure what I'm going to cover next, but hope to make it something cool. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you later. Cheers.